Dean, so that video that we did about tariffs, people are commenting saying that tariffs can be used to get companies to build and buy American.
Okay.
Do you think that's possible? If we
What is
impose
that?
tariffs?
Bring back manufacturing.
Yes.
Right, okay. Before I answer that question, first of all, no. Okay, and no has a little bit more expansion to the no. Okay, so when you just say we're talking about tariffing everything, okay, going back to that example I used, like the t-shirt, right? So, okay, fine. I'm going to tariff the countries and we're going to make t-shirts over here. Great. Guess what? How many cotton mills are there here? Do we still plant cotton in the South? So you have to go and plant all that cotton, right? So fine, you got your raw materials cotton. What about the machines? What about all these other things, right? You have to make all those things, right? Do we have, in this example, every single resource to make a t-shirt sourced locally? No, we're gonna have to import something. So number one, if you tariff everything, you have to import some inputs. They call them inputs, raw materials, if you're manufacturing, right? And those inputs are gonna have tariffs on them. So your inputs are more expensive, number one. Number two, if you import shirts from China and other countries, right, their cost of labor is just cheaper, right? So here, when you bring it here, you gotta pay minimum wage, they unionize, you gotta pay a lot more money for everything. So yeah, you might have some manufacturing in one case, but guess what happens in the end to the product that's manufactured here? You go buy the t-shirt, it's $20 now. It hurts everybody. It's gonna make everything more expensive. You know, that's what's going to happen, always. Because you cannot, if you create a moat around your country and tariff everybody else and says, bring back these jobs, we're gonna make everything ourselves, it will always end up being more expensive. Because there's this concept of competitive advantage, right? In global trade, in free trade, the whole idea is competitive advantage. We're really good at making what? Airplanes, rockets, right? We're good at creating companies like this and all the apps you see in here, right? That's our competitive advantage, right? The competitive advantage of other countries is their labor costs, is their raw materials. There's more raw materials there. They don't have to import it, blah, 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 right? So fair trade makes every country that's really the most efficient and most cost effective at making something just make their thing, right? And then they trade with each other. If you block that, what do you take away? You take away the whole concept of free trade with competitive advantages, right? So you got people not making something that you're supposed to be good at making, whether you have the expertise or the raw materials or the resources to make it, right? They're forced to make it, and it's never going to be it's never going to be cheaper for everyone in general. You know, okay, think of it this way. Imagine like the examples like from I think Adam Smith, whatever, about the butcher, right, in the town, right? The butcher just gets meat, cuts meats and sells meat, right? The tailor sews clothes. The mortician, whatever, coffin maker makes coffins, right? Imagine if you today you have to make the meat, go catch the meat, make the meat, you'll make your own clothes and you'll make your own coffin. It's not efficient. So tariffs block the ability of free trade to allow for different countries' competitive advantages to work. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right. And also, if you look at manufacturing here, right, going back to the manufacturing question, and I went on a tangent, sorry. But if you go back to the manufacturing question, the 2019 tariff, just the most recent one, the 2019 tariffs, right, what did it do, right? It lost jobs. You brought manufacturing back, but you didn't have more people employed. And you made the products more expensive. Like what you just talked to me about, right? When they tariffed China on soybeans, right?
Yeah.
China hit us back. And what happened to the farmers?
Almost put them out of business.
Well, guess what? Then who's paying for the farmers? So the government to come subsidize the farmers, right? Mm-hmm. Right? Who paid for the government? Who gives the government money? We all do in our taxes. More money went to that. It becomes more expensive.
Yeah.
Right? So, you know, the fact that you think it can bring back manufacturing, and also here's the other thing, right? The way to bring back, the way that I feel, the way to enrich or enhance your population, their well-being, is to raise their standard of living, for example, right? So you want growth, you want productivity. You raise their standard of living, they're better off. You don't protect your industries, you know, it's like imagine if during the industrial revolution didn't happen, people want to stay in their farms and not go to the cities and So the same thing will happen in the modern age right now. You have to allow for automation. So yeah, you tariff the crap out of something, you try and bring the manufacturing back here, they're going to have robots doing stuff now, right? They're going to have AI running a lot of computers, needing less people, so it's not going to help your jobs. The only thing it's going to end up doing eventually long term is stifle your growth, making things more expensive, may cause more inflation, which is a anti-growth force, right? It's going to do all those things that hurt your growth. The whole goal of free trade is everyone does the best thing that they can and they sell it at the cheapest cost because they're the most efficient and effective at doing what they do, and you trade with each other freely, right? So yeah, China tariffs us and all that, right? And look also what happens. Like the Trump thing is about tariff everything. If you don't tariff everything, if you start being selective, right, then what you get is offshoring. So, for example, he says tariff everything. Just say he gets in office and you can't tariff everything. You just can't. He's going to end up being, if he does do the tariff thing, he's going to be picking and choosing, right? So there are some countries that won't have tariffs. And what happens if you don't, when you have other countries that are not tariff and countries that are tariff? Like when you tariff the crap out of China, companies move their manufacturing from China to Vietnam, Malaysia, because they don't tariff there. Oh, import from them. You see, so that all proves that you just can't tariff everything. There's a reshoring. The reshoring will end up having companies move their manufacturing to different countries. Or if you do tariff everything, your input cost is going to go up. You're not going to, in the long term, you're not going to see a job growth. The study they did in 2019 on the Trump tariffs to China, which I might say also like the current administration, Biden administration, didn't remove, actually lost jobs. And that's empirical evidence. That's legit. That's data out there. So like, I read a lot of this guy called, his name's Dr. Ed Yardeni. He's an economist. And, I probably read his book like 5 times over. I could read his book for fun, right? And he had a really, really good point in there. He talked about in the 1940s and the 50s, after World War II, he gave examples of, when you removed the Cold War, you took the whole Iron Curtain down and you had an entire part of Eastern Europe opened up, and they could do, everyone thought like, oh my God, you're going to be dead. Like the economy, the world's going to go down, the tubes and all that. But what it created was free trade and competitive advantages between countries, and they traded. Everyone won. And he said, free trade is the panacea. You want free trade. If you can get fair trade, great. But first and foremost, you have to have free trade. So the fair trade comment is like, yeah, not everyone's going to play fair, but you don't go play their game because you're going to start a trade war, and no one wins the trade war. No one.